Emily Shore never believed a school hallway could feel alive. But on that cold November afternoon, something breathed behind the walls. The final bell had rung hours earlier, leaving Willow Creek Middle School wrapped in a hollow quiet that made every footstep echo like a warning. She had stayed late for extra credit, passing by Mr. Wexler's classroom when she noticed a thin line of light sliding out from behind a supply cabinet, soft, trembling, almost pleading. Mr. Wexler, quiet teacher everyone trusted, was supposed to be gone, yet Emily heard a chair scrape gently below the floorboards, followed by a whisper she couldn't place. She froze, heart pounding, sensing she had stepped into something she wasn't supposed to witness. What was he doing down there? And why was the hidden door glowing like it wanted to be found? Emily tried to convince herself she was overreacting, but the strange glow behind the cabinet followed her home in her thoughts. All night she replayed the scraping sound she heard beneath the floor, a lonely metallic drag that felt too heavy for a school basement. By morning, she carried a tight knot of dread in her stomach. She needed someone to believe her. Tyler Briggs, loud enough to make any worry feel smaller, listened with raised eyebrows as she explained everything near their lockers before first bell. Even he couldn't hide the way his expression shifted when she mentioned Wexler going underground. Emily didn't want to sound dramatic, but she knew what she felt. The quiet teacher wasn't just hiding something. He was waiting for someone to find it. During third period, Emily couldn't focus. She kept glancing toward Wexler's classroom across the courtyard, half expecting to see him staring back at her. Instead, he carried on with his quiet routine, speaking in his gentle tone, pushing his glasses up his nose now and then, smiling faintly at students who walked by. None of them had any idea he had slipped beneath the school the night before. The thought made Emily's chest tighten. She whispered her fears to Tyler during lunch. And for the first time, he didn't crack a joke. "We should check again," he said softly. Emily nodded, feeling both terrified and relieved. Whatever was going on, she didn't want to face it alone. After school, Emily and Tyler lingered near the classroom wings, pretending to wait for rides. Students slowly filtered out until the campus settled into an uneasy stillness. Emily pointed toward the supply cabinet block, her heartbeat thudding in her ears. Tyler swallowed hard, his usual bravado slipping. They moved closer, footsteps soft on the tile. The cabinet door looked ordinary under the fading light. But Emily felt the same strange pull she had felt yesterday, like something beneath the school was quietly shifting, waiting for them to return. Tyler put his ear to the wall, his face drained of color. "Something's down there," he whispered. Emily felt the familiar tremor of fear as the hallway darkened toward evening. They stood before the cabinet, the silence unnaturally thick, as if the building itself knew what hid beneath them. Tyler's voice was barely a whisper when he asked if she wanted to open it. Emily shook her head. Not yet. They needed to understand what Wexler was doing and why he kept returning to the hidden space. As they stepped away, Emily caught movement at the far end of the hall. Wexler closed his classroom door without a sound. His eyes lifted toward them, unreadable behind the glare of the lights. Emily felt the air tighten around her. He knew. He knew. The next afternoon, Emily and Tyler returned with a plan far shakier than either wanted to admit. They waited until the hall monitors left, and the school began to empty, their nerves coiling tighter with every passing minute. Emily carried a small flashlight from her dad's toolbox, its cold weight making her palms sweat. Tyler kept glancing toward Wexler's door, as if expecting him to appear from thin air. When the final bell's echo faded, they slipped toward the supply cabinet. Emily's breath quivered as she touched the edge. This time, she pulled harder. The cabinet groaned softly, revealing the narrow, hidden door behind it. Its wood chipped, its hinges old, its secrets waiting in the dark below. The faint glow was gone now, replaced by stillness that felt even worse. Tyler whispered, "We're actually doing this, aren't we?" and Emily nodded. Emily pushed the hidden door open just enough to shine her flashlight down the narrow stairwell. The beam caught swirling dust and the rough, unfinished walls that led into deeper darkness. A metallic scent drifted upward, cold, stale, and out of place for a school basement. Tyler leaned in and whispered that the steps looked too new, like someone had built them recently. Emily felt her stomach twist. This wasn't an old storage access. Someone had carved this space deliberately. She took half a step down before fear yanked her back. A low thump echoed from somewhere beneath them, as if something had shifted in the dark. Tyler grabbed her sleeve. "We shouldn't go down. Not alone," he murmured. They backed away from the stairs, agreeing silently that they needed more time, more courage, maybe even proof before taking another step. Emily snapped a quick photo of the hidden door with her phone, her hands trembling as she framed the shot. The moment she closed the cabinet again, the hallway seemed to exhale, as if relieved they hadn't crossed the line. Tyler told her they'd come back the next day during lunch when teachers were distracted. Emily tried to believe that waiting was the smart choice, but the image of the darkness below clung to her mind like a warning. Something alive was down there. She could feel it. Somehow, she could feel it. The next day felt heavier. Emily couldn't stop replaying the thump from below, wondering if it had been Wexler or something else. At lunch, she and Tyler slipped out of the cafeteria and hurried toward the classroom wing. The school hummed with noise in the distance, but the hallway they entered was silent, emptied by design. Emily reached for the cabinet again, her heart hammering in her chest. Before she could open it, a slow, uneven footstep echoed behind them. Both froze. Mr. Wexler stood halfway down the hall, carrying a stack of old papers, his thin face unreadable behind his glasses. His voice was soft when he called out, "Shouldn't you two be eating with your friends?" But something in his tone crawled under Emily's skin. Emily forced a smile and stepped away from the cabinet, hoping her racing heartbeat wasn't visible in her face. Wexler approached calmly, too calmly, setting his papers down on a nearby desk. He asked if they needed something. His tone light, but his eyes locked on Emily's as if he were searching her thoughts. Tyler stumbled through an excuse about a missing pencil case, but Wexler didn't look at him. His attention remained fixed on Emily, steady and unsettling. After a long pause, he said, "Some doors in this school aren't meant to be opened." Emily felt chills crawl down her spine as he turned and walked away, leaving the hallway colder than before. Emily barely slept that night. Wexler's words kept circling in her head like they were tied to something heavier, something older. By morning, she felt a need she couldn't ignore. She had to know who he really was. During computer lab, while the teacher helped another student, Emily quietly typed his name into the search bar. At first, nothing unusual appeared. Basic staff listings, old school newsletters. But then she scrolled deeper. A small-town newspaper article mentioned a sudden resignation at his previous school. Another hinted at unresolved incidents involving student belongings. A third mentioned a missing student, though no one was charged. Emily's stomach tightened. Tyler leaned over her shoulder, reading in silence. The pattern was faint but unmistakable. Wherever Wexler went, something strange followed, and now he had a hidden room. When the bell rang, Emily and Tyler slipped outside to the courtyard, needing space to breathe. Emily read the articles again, her hands shaking slightly each time Wexler's name appeared beside phrases like strange activity or internal investigation. Even worse were the rumors in the comment sections, parents talking about locked storage spaces, misplaced student journals, and unexplained noises beneath classrooms. Tyler paced back and forth, running a hand through his hair, trying to accept what they were discovering. Emily felt a cold clarity settle over her. If Wexler had built secret spaces before, then the room under their school wasn't an accident. It was intentional, and he had done it more than once. Emily dug deeper that evening, sitting cross-legged on her bedroom floor, her laptop balanced on her knees. The more she searched, the more pieces she uncovered. Quiet transfers, Closed-door meetings, unexplained school evacuations that were blamed on faulty wiring. And always, Wexler's name appeared somewhere on the staff list. Emily's mom knocked twice to remind her about dinner, but she barely heard. A sinking feeling pulled at her chest as she found a photo of him from 15 years ago. He looked almost identical. Same glasses, same thin frame, except his eyes seemed sharper, somehow colder. She whispered into the quiet of her room. "What were you hiding back then?" The next day at school, Emily showed Tyler a printed stack of what she found. They huddled in the far corner of the library where no one ever sat. Tyler flipped through the pages slowly, his face paling with each line. "Why didn't any of these schools report him?" he asked. Emily shook her head. She could only guess. Maybe no proof. Maybe fear. Maybe someone protecting him. The librarian passed by, giving them a curious glance, but didn't interrupt. Emily lowered her voice even more. "If he's been building these rooms for years, what's he keeping inside them?" Tyler swallowed hard, unable to answer. The weight of what they discovered settled on them as the school day dragged on. Emily felt eyes on her during every class, even when she knew it was just her imagination. When the final bell rang, she and Tyler met near the lockers, their decision already made without speaking. They had to go back to the hidden door. They had to see the room, really see it. As they walked down the quiet hallway, Emily felt a strange mix of dread and certainty. The truth was well the floor, and running from it wouldn't make it disappear. They moved together toward the supply cabinet, hearts pounding, not just from fear, but from the knowledge that whatever waited below was part of a story that had begun long before they were born. Emily's hands trembled as she slid the cabinet aside for the third time that week, but tonight the air felt different, heavier, colder, almost expectant. The hallway was empty, except for the faint hum of the vending machine at the far end. Tyler stood behind her, breathing slower than usual, his nerves stretched tight. Emily pushed the hidden door open and the stale scent from below rushed up to meet them. The flashlight beam cut down the narrow staircase, landing on scattered dust that looked recently disturbed. Emily swallowed hard. Every instinct told her to run, but every clue they uncovered pushed her forward. She whispered, almost to herself, "If we don't see what's down there, no one will believe us." Tyler squeezed her shoulder, a silent promise that he wasn't backing out. Together, they stepped into the mouth of the dark. The first steps creaked under their weight, each one echoing too loudly in the narrow stairwell. Emily's flashlight shook, casting jittery beams across the rough concrete walls. They descended slowly, the air growing colder with each foot downward. Tyler whispered that the staircase felt too clean to be old, and Emily agreed. Someone had swept here. Someone had taken care. When they reached the bottom, the hallway opened into a small landing with a single metal door. Its handle was polished, almost new, and faint marks around the keyhole suggested it had been opened many times. Emily pressed her ear against it. Silence. Not peaceful silence. Waiting silence. She stepped back, heart pounding so hard she felt it in her fingertips. "Ready," she whispered. Tyler nodded despite the fear in his eyes. Emily turned the handle. It clicked. Quiet, smooth, practiced, and the door swung inward with a slow groan. The room beyond was larger than she expected, dimly lit by a single bulb hanging from a crooked wire. Her breath caught. The walls were covered with pinned photographs of students from past years. Some she recognized from old yearbooks, others she had never seen. Under each photo were notes in Wexler's careful handwriting, tracking routines, friendships, test scores, personal details no teacher should know. Tyler stepped closer to a shelf lined with labeled boxes. Inside the first one were belongings. A bracelet, a broken watch, a folded paper with a child's handwriting. Emily felt her chest tighten as a cold truth hit her. This wasn't storage. This was keeping. Emily moved along the wall, fingertips hovering just above the images, her stomach twisting as she realized how far the pattern stretched. Some photos were yellowed with age, others recent enough to include kids she passed every day. She tried to steady her breath as she found a section labeled Observations, filled with pages of careful notes about which students stayed after school, who walked home alone, who trusted him most. Tyler opened another box and found a stack of journals, private ones, each taken without the writer knowing. A knot formed in his throat as he whispered Emily's name and handed her a familiar teal notebook. Her own handwriting stared back at her. "He took this from my locker," she whispered, feeling the ground tilt. The room wasn't just about past students. It was about them too. The room felt like it was shrinking around them. Emily clutched the stolen notebook to her chest as Tyler urged they leave before Wexler returned. They backed toward the door, their nerves frayed to the edge. Just as Tyler reached for the handle, a soft creak echoed from the stairwell above. Emily froze. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, descended the steps. The bulb overhead flickered, as if reacting. Tyler grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the far corner of the room, but there was nowhere to hide. The footsteps stopped just outside the door. A pause, a breath. Then the quiet teacher's calm, steady voice drifted into the room like a blade sliding through fabric. "I wondered when you'd find this place." Emily felt her heart drop as the doorknob began to turn. The door opened with a slow, steady push, and Mr. Wexler stepped inside as if he had been expecting them all along. The hanging bulb swayed gently, throwing uneven shadows across his thin face. Emily felt Tyler's grip tighten on her arm, but she couldn't move. Wexler shut the door behind him with a soft click, sealing them inside the room that held years of secrets. His calm voice filled the silence. "Most students never notice this place. You pay attention." Emily's throat tightened. He didn't sound angry. He sounded almost proud. He began to walk toward the center of the room, brushing his fingers across the shelves, across the boxes, holding other people's memories, as if they belonged to him. Emily took a shaky step back. Something in his eyes had changed. Quiet no longer meant gentle. Quiet meant dangerous. Wexler walked slowly around the room, his pace measured, almost thoughtful. "You're curious," he said softly. "Curiosity means you're paying attention to things others ignore." Emily felt every word hook into her like a threat wrapped in praise. Tyler stepped in front of her, trying to shield her, but Wexler only gave him a faint, disapproving glance. He pointed to the wall of photographs. "These aren't what you think. I keep track because no one else does. Kids get lost. Kids disappear between the noise." His voice trembled, not with guilt, but with conviction. Emily's stomach turned. He believed this. Every box, every note, every stolen item. He thought it meant protection. Tyler whispered, "This is wrong." But Wexler only tilted his head, almost pitying. "Wrong," he repeated quietly. "Or necessary?" Emily couldn't stay silent any longer. Her voice cracked when she asked, "Why do you have our things? Why take them?" Wexler's eyes softened unnervingly, like he thought she was asking about homework. "Because belongings tell the truth people hide. You can't help someone if you don't understand them." He stepped closer, and Emily pressed herself tighter against the wall. Tyler moved in front of her again, but Wexler didn't stop. "You too," he continued. "You're different. You notice patterns. You see what others look past." Emily felt her chest tighten with dread as he reached out his hand. Not to hurt them, but to welcome them, like he wanted them to believe in his twisted logic. The room felt too small, too close. Tyler whispered, "Emily, we need to run." Suddenly, Tyler grabbed a small metal box from the shelf and hurled it across the room. It slammed into the wall near Wexler, scattering papers and breaking the tension like shattered glass. Wexler flinched, only for a moment, but that moment was enough. Emily darted toward the door, pulling Tyler with her. Wexler's voice rose behind them, sharper than they had ever heard it. "Stop! You don't understand what you're doing." His footsteps pounded across the floor as he lunged toward them. Emily fought with the door handle, her fingers trembling too hard to grip it. Tyler shoved her aside gently and twisted the knob with all his strength. The door burst open, spilling cold air into the suffocating room. Emily didn't look back. She couldn't. They scrambled into the stairwell, nearly stumbling over each other as they pushed upward. Emily's legs burned, her lungs tight, but she kept climbing, driven by pure fear. Behind them, Wexler's footsteps echoed like steady hammer strikes. He wasn't running. He didn't need to. His calm pace was somehow worse, as if he believed they had nowhere to go. When they reached the top, Tyler shoved the hidden door shut and dragged the cabinet back with all his weight. Emily pressed her back against the lockers, chest heaving. Silence followed, too sudden, too complete. Then Wexler's voice rose from below the floor, muffled but unmistakably composed. "You can close the door, but you already opened the truth." Emily felt the sting of cold sweat. They were out, but not safe. Emily barely remembered getting home. Her mind replayed the hidden room over and over. The photos, the notes, the stolen items, and Wexler's calm voice echoing in the dark. She told her mom everything in a trembling rush, half expecting disbelief. But her mother's face changed the moment she heard the words, "secret room." Within an hour, Officer Reed Hanlon arrived, calm, steady, and concerned. But Emily could see hesitation in his eyes as she described every detail. When Tyler's parents called with the same story, that hesitation cracked. Officer Hanlon finally stood, radio crackling at his shoulder, and said he needed to see the place himself. Emily felt a heavy weight shift inside her. The truth was no longer just hers and Tyler's to carry. It was out in the open now, and it was growing. The next morning, police cars lined the curb outside Willow Creek Middle School, their flashing lights reflecting off the windows like fractured alarms. Students gathered in tight circles, whispering and staring at the officers who hurried inside. Emily and Tyler arrived together, both exhausted but determined. Principal Foley rushed toward the police, confusion and irritation mixing across her face. Emily could hear her insisting that no such room existed, that the kids must have misunderstood. But when Officer Hanlon motioned her aside, his serious tone stripped away her denial. Emily watched the color drain from the principal's face. For the first time, the adults finally felt what she had felt all week. Something terrible had been hiding right under their feet. Inside the classroom wing, the officers moved quickly. They slid the supply cabinet aside, revealing the hidden door Emily feared she'd see again. Principal Foley pressed a shaking hand to her mouth as the officers opened it and descended the stairs. Emily and Tyler waited in the hallway with a growing crowd of teachers and students. Minutes dragged. Then Officer Hanlon returned, his face grim. He ordered the hallway cleared and the building locked down. Emily realized in that moment that the room hadn't just existed. It had been far worse than even she imagined. The murmur of frightened voices swelled around her, but all she could hear was the pounding of her own heartbeat. News traveled fast. By midday, parents crowded outside the school gates while whispers tore through the community. Some said Wexler had been found inside the room. Others claimed he had escaped. Emily overheard two teachers arguing about how long the room had existed and whether anyone else had known. When Officer Hanlon pulled Emily and Tyler, his voice softened. He thanked them for speaking up, then explained that the room held documents dating back decades, records from Wexler's previous schools, lists of students he had observed, and items matching old missing property reports. Emily felt sick. Tyler stared at the floor, jaw tight. "This went on for years," the officer added quietly. "And no one saw it?" Emily knew that wasn't entirely true. Some people had seen. They just hadn't wanted to believe. By evening, the school had turned into a crime scene wrapped in yellow tape. Emily and her mother watched from the sidewalk as investigators moved in and out, carrying boxes filled with evidence from the hidden room. Tyler stood beside them with his parents, silent and shaken. No one knew where Wexler was. He hadn't been found inside the school, and no one had seen him leave. That absence felt worse than any confrontation. Emily stared at the building she once trusted, now hollowed out by secrets. She realized the quiet teacher had spent years perfecting the art of going unnoticed. And now, with everything exposed, he had simply slipped away. The night air pressed cold against her skin as a chilling thought settled deeper than fear. He wasn't finished. The next few days passed in a numb blur. School was closed indefinitely, and the town moved like it was walking through fog. Emily stayed indoors, trying to focus on homework she couldn't understand, pretending life was normal when nothing felt normal anymore. Reporters camped outside the school. Parents whispered in grocery store aisles. Every conversation circled back to Wexler and the room beneath Willow Creek. Emily felt a knot form in her chest every time she imagined him, still out there, watching from somewhere quiet. Tyler texted her constantly, each message carrying the same fear she tried not to voice, even with the room exposed. The truth didn't feel finished. It felt like the beginning of something bigger. Something Wexler had been preparing long before they were born. On the fourth day, Officer Hanlon visited Emily's house again. This time, his expression held something deeper than concern. Something like disbelief. He explained that investigators had contacted Wexler's former schools and discovered records of similar complaints, similar rumors, and even one sealed-off storage area built decades earlier. But the last piece shook Emily the most. A school custodian from Wexler's past claimed he once found a hidden room, too. But it was bricked up before police arrived. We never learned what was inside, the custodian said. Emily felt her pulse spike. If Wexler had been perfecting these rooms for years, then the one at their school wasn't unique. It was part of a pattern no one ever stopped. Later that afternoon, Emily met Tyler at the park. Neither spoke at first. They just sat on the swings, letting the wind push them gently as kids played far on the other side of the field. Tyler finally broke the silence, telling her he couldn't stop thinking about the items in the boxes, the journals, the photos that spanned years. Emily nodded. Wexler hadn't just watched them. He had watched countless students. What if he built another room somewhere else already? Tyler whispered. Emily looked down at the dirt beneath her shoes. She didn't want to imagine it, but she knew imagining it was safer than ignoring it. Wexler wasn't caught. He wasn't finished. And the world outside their small town had no idea. That night, Emily found herself drawn back to the printed articles she had saved. The ones about Wexler's previous schools. The rumors that once seemed like scattered coincidences but now read like warning. She laid them across her bedroom floor, matching dates, tracing patterns, connecting details she hadn't noticed before. Every transfer lined up with a quiet incident. Every new school seemed to begin and end with the same questions. Emily realized he had never been trying to hide entirely, only to move just enough to stay unnoticed. The truth settled sharply in her chest. Wexler wasn't a man who snapped. He was a man who planned, and he had been planning longer than anyone had cared to see. In the early hours of the morning, Emily stepped outside onto her porch, unable to sleep. The neighborhood was silent except for a distant dog barking. She wrapped her arms around herself and stared into the dark street, feeling the weight of everything she had learned. The hidden room was gone now, emptied and catalogued, but the pattern Wexler left behind still stretched across the country, unfinished, unanswered. A rustle of wind passed through the trees, and Emily felt a chill deep in her bones. Somewhere out there, Wexler was walking into another quiet town, another quiet school, with another quiet smile. And the last question that settled into her mind struck harder than any fear in that underground room. How many hidden doors had no one ever found?